All in Sports Network. We love sports.
Coming to you from Christmas Barbecue, Lone Stars, and Longhorns. This is All In Colts, presented by the Unstable Blues.
Welcome back in. This episode, we will preview the Week 1 matchup with the team from Houston. We will go over keys to the game, matchups to watch, and identify the all-in player to watch. So, let's go. All In Colts.
I'm Kevin. This is Liam. We are the Unstable Blues. Happy to present All In Colts as part of the Rogue Media Sports Network. Couple injury things leading up here. Matt Gay had hernia surgery after the Bengals game, and so his status a little up in the air. Not so sure at this point.
Yeah, that means Spencer might be able to come up and play.
Could be.
And then JFD is up in the air with a high ankle sprain. JFD being Josh First Downs, as we like to call him.
That's right. Dallas Flowers, though, is back on the field after his hamstring, so that's good. Let's go over our keys to the game. These are things that we think are potentials to watch, things to watch for. This is all from the Colts' perspective, of course.
Yes,
what the Colts need to do to secure a victory Week 1.
Yeah. I mean, you have your standard thing that you say. I have my standard thing, so I'm going to start that off that.
Let's go.
I'm wearing it too.
That's right.
Run the ball and keep running the ball. Don't stop. You have a top 5. You have a top 5 offensive line and a top 5 running back in the league. No reason you should stop running the ball the whole game.
And you now have one of the top running threat quarterbacks in the league as well.
You are just such a high-powered run offense. Go to your strengths. Yes, it's a passing league, but you built yourself as a running offense. So do that. It works. You can make it work.
Yeah.
I think also there's a huge mental factor that plays into this game with it being returned to the crime from last season, from who wins the AFC South.
Okay.
So obviously a big game there with the mental factor. I think that we also, use what you have strengths in. We have 10 defensive linemen. Wear all of them out. Just keep going after the quarterback with everything you have. You are 10 deep. And it's not like we're 10 deep and after the first 6 we're bad. We are 10 deep and we're all talented.
Yeah.
Use all 10 of them, whichever way you please. Just run them to the quarterback. Just keep pressure on CJ Stroud so that he will make bad throws, bad reads, everything like that. And I think also, this whole game is just going to be won in the trenches. They have a really good defensive line with Daniil, and then also Will Anderson.
Yep.
We have a good defensive line with Grove, Buck, Kwity Paye, Latu, obviously. Send blitzes. It kind of goes off of the pressure thing. Yes, we have defensive linemen, but we have very talented linebackers who are great in coverage, but are way better at tackling. Both of our top 2 linebackers were in triple digits. That doesn't happen that often. Yep. That means they were all in on every single tackle, which is exactly what you want to see.
Yep.
So that's kind of on the defensive side. The offensive side, kind of continue with the thing about running the ball. You got to win the trench battle. You have 10 offensive linemen. Use all of them if you have to. I want them to have good run blocking, but obviously if you keep running the ball, you can obviously pass after that. So not only good run blocking, good pass blocking for AR. Give him time to find the receivers or take off if he needs to. And my final thing, AR, if you're watching this, I'm speaking to you. Don't hurt yourself, please.
This is one thing that we haven't discussed a whole lot that everyone else talking about the Colts, this is one of the first things that they talk about. Like, everyone talks about the potential in Shane Steichen and all the weapons and everything, but almost at the same time as they talk about that, there's this if Anthony Richardson stays healthy.
Yeah.
That's the denoter to all of everything that anybody wants to talk about with the Colts. If he can stay healthy. So I'm curious, as someone who has had a season-ending injury and come back from it, not that it's the same. His is his shoulder. You had ACL, and maybe to tie into the mental aspect as well. What does he need to do, if anything? What do we need to be talking about differently, or are we right by not saying anything in his comeback from injury?
I think there's just so many things that so many more things that go into an injury, especially a season-ending one, than a lot of people think. Like, obviously, it's season-ending, and then you come back next year. That's kind of just what people see. They don't see all the work behind the scenes. There's so much work that goes into it, and then the whole time while you're working, and you're like, man, why am I doing this sometimes? And then other times you're like, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to do even better than I did. Obviously, my junior year was my best year of football before my ACL tear, and then senior wasn't as good, but that wasn't because of me. I felt at my best senior year and junior year. My body was in the best shape it's been in. My knees, especially that one knee, it felt better coming back than it did. There were a couple hiccups where a lot of scar tissue popped all at once, and I got scared. But especially the first game I came back, that happened. I got an interception and I got tackled in an awkward way. My knee kind of popped, and I was like, "Oh no, I hope nothing happened." And it kind of hurt. Then I woke up the next day and I was fine. But it definitely is I'd say yes, it's a big physical block. But once you get to the point where you're comfortable taking hits, that's kind of what we did with me, where we had almost 15 to 20 minutes where it was only me taking the hits just so I could get used to it again. And it wasn't hard hits or anything, just softer hits, just kind of get used to it. And then I started getting the hard hits. Yes, it's a physical block, but I think it's more mental. I've said this throughout everything, and I've talked to people through it, and they completely agree with me. It's a lot more of a mental block than it is for anything else. Because you're like, oh no, I don't want to take this hit. I'm just going to fall. Or I don't want to do this. I'm not going to do it. Or I'm not going to attempt it or something like that. And it was really hard. And I had to have help from a lot of people to be like, hey, you need to do this. If you want to get to this point, you need to do this.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So it's definitely a big mental factor. Lots of hard times, but then whenever you see that growth, lots of good times. So I think in overall perspective, obviously there is stuff going on, but with the way I saw him perform during the preseason practices and all that, I don't think there's a need to talk about it. It's kind of just think of it as his rookie year still. That's kind of my thought.
Yeah, and everybody wants to say protect yourself. You look at what he did. I don't know that there's really anything other than that one touchdown that he scored when we were in Houston. I don't think there's
that
anything.
Wasn't necessarily his fault either, though. That
he kind of eased up a little bit that caused the hit that didn't need to be, right? If he keeps running full steam, nothing happens. But even the huge, the shoulder, somebody just landed on him weird. And it wasn't like he was doing something miraculous. He was just, and it wasn't enough space to slide. You're not going to ask him literally to do anything else other than what he did, other than maybe slide a couple times. But most of those situations were, we need it. And that's what the coaching staff is going to want you to do. Don't do anything unless you need it. Well, if you need it, then you need it, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's really anything that he could have done. And I think Shane's exactly right in his famous quote from this preseason. Are you going to ask Steph to stop shooting the three? Now, there's a lot less danger with Steph shooting a three than what AR does. But if a player does something well, the last thing you want to do is go back and put them back inside their head.
Yep.
And
Agreed.
you're going to want him to play loose and free. We even saw throughout the preseason, throughout training camp, that was when he was at his best, when he knows exactly what's expected, like with your pre-game script, your
Mhm.
first 15, 20 plays, or in the last, 4 minutes, in the last 2 minutes, where you have to simply trust your instincts, turn off your brain, and let your body take over. That's when
Yeah.
he's at his best. So that, I guess, that will be the last that we ever talk about that, unless something
Mhm.
happens again. But we're not even going to go there.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
My keys to the game. You're going to hear this every single week. If you tune into this, protect the ball, take the ball.
There you go. Yep.
It goes both ways.
Mhm.
This is a very, if I look at most NFL games, I can tell you who won simply by looking at who won the turnover battle.
Yep.
If you protect the ball on offense and you take the ball on defense, you're almost guaranteed a win.
Yep.
That's how important it is. The ball is, right? To maintain ball security on offense and to force on defense a takeaway.
Yeah.
And I think that this is something that, provided Anthony Richardson not stays healthy, but takes and puts two hands on the ball at all times, I think this is something that the Colts can be really good at.
Yeah. And
Taking the ball
kind
away
of.
on defense. They have some ball hawks in Blackman and Franklin and Speed and Kenny. And then on offense, I don't know if anybody really is fumble or interception prone, honestly.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody's going to freak out because of the one preseason pick where Anthony Richardson had a miscommunication. That stuff's going to happen. You got to be able to overcome it. That's
Mhm.
when you trust your defense to be able to take the ball away.
The one preseason pick.
Right?
And to kind of piggy off that
Yeah.
of what you said about protecting the ball and taking the ball. I mean, just another thing to that is you take the ball, and then if you protect it, you control the pace of the game because you have most of the time of possession.
Yep.
So you are able to play how you want to play.
Yep. Other things here. Start fast. That's one thing that Houston did well in the last game last year with that big throw to Nico. Pressure. You mentioned pressure. CJ Stroud. Everybody talks about his poise and everything like that. Now, I understand there's a big difference between week 2 and week 18 when the two different Colts matchups were last year. But the Colts got 6 sacks against CJ Stroud in the first game, and he was able to come on toward the end when the Colts were in more of a prevent kind of defense.
Yeah.
If you can keep pressure on him, I don't think he's nearly as good as people say he is with pressure as without. And so if you can bring the blitzes, if you can even, put the pressure on him with Latu and Dio and Quiddy up front and Buck in his face, he's not going to like it. He's going to get uncomfortable. Any quarterback will tell you if they are uncomfortable, it's not going to be a good day. The difference, I think, between CJ and AR is AR's okay with you in his face because he's built like Khalil Mack. And so he's not super worried about Aaron Donald hanging on his legs. He's still going to get it out with his arm strength about 40 yards and make you pay for it.
Yeah.
CJ's not built like that. And CJ is a little bit more on platform and more beneficial with that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
A big key, I think, for me is eliminating Dalton Schultz. Whether that's Blackman, whether that's Cross, whether that's EJ, Speed. I think that Dalton Schultz can bail CJ out a lot. And so when you're getting pressure, you got to make sure you cover Dalton because I think he's a relief valve a lot for their offense. And so if you can eliminate him, I think that's a good thing. One thing the Colts struggled with last year on defense was screen passes.
Yep.
So you got to watch that as well. Almost got to have somebody assigned to that.
Yeah, and Joe
on
Mixon is
every single
very
play.
yeah. Joe Mixon is very good out of the backfield on those screen plays.
Yeah.
And just I mean, kind of what you said with the be careful of Dalton Schultz because of that. Be careful of Joe Mixon because of this pressure too, because those are his two outlets. Because he's not going to go deep or across the middle to anyone, because those are just not smart throws.
Yeah.
And C.J. Stroud is a very smart quarterback. He's going to take the checkdowns or something like that just to get 1-2 yards, but make sure it's only 1-2 yards and it doesn't turn into 6-7, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. The Colts corner's got to show up. I don't know if you know this, but Houston has some really good receivers.
Really?
They cut Noah Brown, who had over 500 yards last year. That's how deep their receiving core goes. Now, there's some new blood in there. Tank Dell is amazing on the outside, but coming off an injury. Stephon Diggs is new. He's good, but he's new. And so it might take some time to build that chemistry. I've always heard that NFL teams don't really know who they are and have their identity until about week 4. So week 1 is the time to capitalize.
Yep.
It's a time to capitalize.
I completely agree there.
You also got to take your shots, down the field. Pierce, great opportunities. AD, great opportunities. Take your shots, but also don't be afraid to take the easy check down. You do have check downs available, whether that is a tight end, whether that is JT or Goodson or Sermon if he's back with his hamstring, whatever it is. Take your shots, but don't be afraid to check down, right?
Yeah.
Read the coverage, find the one-on-one. Find the one-on-one. If somebody's one-on-one, I trust any one of the Colts receivers to win that one-on-one matchup. Whether that's AP going deep, whether it's AD shaking them, whether that's Pitt just out-muscling them, whatever it is, I'm confident in the one-on-one.
Yeah.
And then work the middle of the field with Granson or Ogletree or Mo Alley Cox. Work the tight ends in the spaces. And then I'm also going to close out with this. This is a classic coaching matchup. You got 2 second-year head coaches. One's offensive, one's defensive. And so something's got to give here, right? You have a great offensive mind and a great defensive mind. Honestly, my biggest thing is that this might be an assistant coach deciding this. And that's why I'm a little worried, because I don't know if I trust Gus Bradley that much just yet.
Yeah.
Now on to something there might be plenty of in this game. Matchups to watch. We're looking for one-on-one matchups that you are going to keep your eye on throughout the game.
I'll try not to take all of them because I can think of a lot off the top of my head.
I did too. I've got a whole list. So you dish out some and I'll dish out some, and there you go.
I think the first
basically
one that pops
whole
in my
team
head,
versus whole team.
Yes. I'll think of the number one I could think of, kind of with the check down thing, is whoever's got Dalton. So whether that be EJ or Nick or Blackman, whoever it is at the time, whoever's got him, because I think our defense is going to be a lot better going zone rather than man against such a stacked receiving core like this, which I think will end up doing the same thing against Miami. But
then you lose. Then you have a potential to lose the guys like Schultz, right? That's the problem with zone.
Yes. So, but I don't hate I don't know if you can do like half zone, half man type of thing. I don't know.
Man or zone with one man
Yes.
on.
Yeah, something like that. Um, and then I think you also need to watch Joe Mixon, whoever's on him, whether that be speed or safety or whoever it is. Because I think Zaire might get running back too. I don't know. Um, and then if we want to go to offense here, MPJ, because I think he is the clear number one as of right now.
Yeah.
MPJ versus Derek Stingley, because that is their best corner. He is a very talented corner as well. Not very many interceptions, but he is very good at coverage and such like that. I think that whoever's got so basically the entire defensive line versus the entire offensive line of both teams. Um, and then I'll go a little bit specific, being Will Anderson versus who is it? Is it Ryman on the outside?
Yep.
Um,
Depending on where he lines up. Yes.
yes, and then Daniil is either outside or inside. He goes both ways. So versus Q versus Ryman, whoever it is. And then I think also another big one is whoever's got AD, because I think they lack um, they lack other corners besides Stingley. So whether
Okay.
that be AD's going deep or whatever's happening with AD, they got to watch out for him, because not only do they have a good receiving core, I think we do as well. And then my last one that I can think of as of right now is AP going the deep ball versus Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward is very talented safety. But I think AP hasn't gotten a chance to shine with his deep threat ability, and I think he is actually very talented at what he does. Now he has a quarterback that can throw 60-yard bombs without effort, I should say. So that's kind of where I'm with all that stuff.
All right. And I've heard AP has had his best camp yet.
Interesting.
So I'm gonna start where I ended my my keys to the game and say the matchups to watch are Shane Steichen and D'Amico
Okay,
Ryans.
gotcha.
There was that unique exchange week 2 last year where the Colts had the punt team out, ran out the offense last second, and then forced a timeout. We saw Shane do that a couple times to kind of mess with people. It backfired one time when he tried to do it back to back, I think, against the Ravens, and they just let the play clock run out, and they had to take a 5-yard penalty. They're both good coaches. They're both really good coaches, and so and this will be the third time seeing each other. They're gonna add different stuff. They've added different players or kept the same players if you're the Colts, but they're gonna be different, right? Like they're gonna add some different stuff. They're both creative guys, and so I'm curious to see how that kind of progresses, because the team goes as the coach goes, and so I like that. The matchup that worries me is Bobby Slovic versus Gus Bradley, offensive coordinator for Houston, versus Gus Bradley, the defensive coordinator for the Colts. That's what worries me. Gus has got to get creative. He's got to get some different pressures out there, but also be able to lock the guys down on the outside and deep with the corners.
Yeah.
I'm going to go through my list here and see what you didn't say here. Okay. This is going to be interesting. Kenny Moore versus.
Isn't that Tank in the slot?
But Tank is outside. Tank's like a TY kind of outside.
So would it be Stephon then?
But Stefan's outside too.
Yeah, Nico is strictly outside though. I don't think he can run slot. Tank and Stephon.
But that's my greatest point here is you don't know. And so Kenny's watching film going, I don't know who I'm going to be up against. And I might have to prepare for a handful of guys, right?
Yeah.
So can he handle it? Yes, it's Kenny Moore, possibly the best we're going to say
Pause.
the best
Yeah.
slot nickel corner that there is, right?
Mhm.
In the league. But he can be good if he knows who he's going to be up against. But, with this team, you don't exactly know. You have to be
Yeah.
prepared for lots of different things on top of the craziness that is in the slot, where you got to worry about the run. You got to worry about the safeties and the coverages and the zones and the mans and all these different things that you got to worry about on the
Mhm.
inside. You don't have to worry about on the outside. You're on an island and you just got to lock your guy down, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes you got to help over the top. Sometimes you don't. You got to figure that out. There's so much more intricacies in the slot.
Yeah.
And so on top of that, and then you got to worry about who exactly you're covering play to play.
Mhm.
I'm going to throw out a mental game here. Back to your
Okay.
mental game. CJ Stroud. Sorry, I always start with Colts. Zaire Franklin versus CJ Stroud. I
Okay.
don't know if you know this. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but there's been a lot of this. A lot of this from both of them over the offseason.
Yeah.
Zaire is saying, congratulations, you won the offseason Super Bowl because you scored a lot of players. Now how you going to put it together? And CJ's out there like, I just made their house my house. And so
Didn't we do that to them though?
we did, but, it was early in the season. Let's face it, most of the Houston fans didn't even see it because we were in the seats and they weren't.
Yeah, it's true.
They were still getting nachos, and before they sat down, it was 14-0. So they didn't see that, and then AR went out, and then so all they saw was CJ Stroud put on a performance against soft coverage,
Yeah.
and then Gardner Minshew still almost beat them, but
Mhm.
potato. So I'm interested to see how that goes. You mentioned Joe Mixon. I'm going to say Grover Stewart versus Joe
Okay.
Mixon.
Yeah.
Like, I will take some screen passes where he gets some first downs here and there if he can not get anything going on the ground.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
If the only thing Joe Mixon can do is catch a pass and go for 6 yards every so often because there's nothing else and there's pressure coming up against CJ, I'll take that. I'll
Yeah.
take that. Kind of like with Derrick Henry, you got to worry about the yards per carry, not necessarily the amount of carries,
Mhm.
I mentioned the screen game. You mentioned Pitt and Stingley. I'm going to go and see. I want to see how well Anthony Richardson can be with his eyes versus Jalen Petrie and Jimmy Ward.
Yeah.
I need to. I want to see how advanced he is in that, with that kind of thing, and being able to, look off and come back. Do
Mhm.
his reads, but trust his receivers. Can he do that so that those two guys are really good? Can he make them less of an issue with
Yeah.
his eyes? The last thing I'm going to say is Anthony Richardson versus the conflict defender,
Okay.
because this is going to be so important the whole rest of the season in the RP, what we've referred to as the RPRO game, because it's not just a run pass option. It's now a run pass run option because you have a rushing quarterback.
Yeah.
Where he can fake the handoff, and if he reads it wrong, guess what? He can still beat you. But that reading it correctly is going to be so important to the success of the entire offense. If you can read the conflict defender, whether that's the safety coming up in the box, whether that's the defensive end, and maybe not getting lost between the tight end and the tackle, if he can show that he is ready to read that correctly, then there's a whole lot of other things that can follow from that.
Agreed. Yeah.
So that's not a specific matchup, but it's very important and similar to the eyes. To me, that shows his off-season work, his work in the film room, to take take the team to the next level.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, last one. Your all-in Colts player to watch. Who is it for you?
My player to watch.
This is a
There's just so
person.
many.
Sorry, I need to explain this to our new viewers. This is a person, a Colts player that we think is going to have a breakout game, a good game, and could be up for our player of the week after Sunday.
Yes. I think mine has to be JT. We haven't really talked about him that much. I mean, I'm wearing a shirt, so
and what was it? I mean, because last game, the Week 18 game last year, what was he had? You remember?
He had like 30 carries for 188 yards, something like that.
Yeah,
So monster
he dominated.
Game.
Yeah,
monster game. I expect him to do pretty much the same thing. I mean, my main point is run the ball and keep running the ball. So I think JT has to be able to perform. If he doesn't perform, we still like have a chance, obviously. But I think for us to do really well and be really successful, we need for for JT to be able to do pretty much whatever he wants with the ball when he wants.
All right. I like it. I'm going to say, contrary to what I wrote down and what you might see on the run sheet, I'm going to say that Zaire Franklin.
Okay.
Can I give you two?
Sure. Yeah.
Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed.
Okay. So it's a package deal.
Yeah. I in order for this game to go well, the linebackers have to work well together, have to communicate to the rest of the defense and everything like that. There's so many players that could have opportunities here. But for all of the danger spots, I think that we talked about, I think it comes down to Zaire and Speed, and they do this same thing, and on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And so that grows a relationship, as we've seen. So I would like to see that continue to grow and stretch to the rest of the team, and so that's my
agreed.
two.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's it for this entire week. We'll be back next week with our regular weekly episode. We will recap the game against Houston, check in on Colts fantasy players in the fantasy stable, update the South, pick six as always, and preview the next game in Lambeau against the Packers.
Yep. This is Liam.
And this is Kevin.
Reminding you to stay all in Colts.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.